Okay, so, it's the deviation. These are deviations. We square them, then we divide by the capital N. So that's really different. Now, it's a frequency distribution. We have to put the frequency in there as well. Right now, it's a straightforward one. So I'm going to show you how to do means and standard deviations on the calculator. But first things first, we need to do it the long way at least one time. So for this example right here, it says below is a sample of the starting salaries for a mega corporation, Corporation A. Find the mean, the variance, and the standard deviation. So there are two ways. Well, there's one way to do it. We're going to do it by hand, first of all. So I've got all my data points on here. What's the first thing I need to calculate? To start to get the standard deviation, what's the first thing I need to calculate? The mean. I need to know what the mean is so I can use that to find my deviations. All right, how am I going to find my mean? Yep, add them all up, divide by how many you have. What's the sum of them all? I already gave you that, 415. And how many are there? 10. So my X bar should be 415 divided by 41.5. Okay. Using your calculators, this should go into L1. Then we need to figure out what goes into L2 and L3. Look at the formula above. You should know how to do this. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and put my data in. I'm not going to go through all the calculations, but I want you to, and we'll see if we can come up with that standard deviation. So what is the first thing we're calculating? What goes in L2? You can't remember, ask the neighbors. Between the two of you, you can figure it out. Or three of you. Okay? You got to remember how to calculate standard deviation.
But you have. What?
Yeah.
Oh, what you do?
Uh,
L1 minus
Go to my laptop.
No,
But I don't do that.
Okay.
Wait a second. Don't figure it out yet? What do we do in the L2?
Yeah, click.
Yes, what did you put in L2?
The L1 minus 41.5 is put L2.
Very good. So we took X values and we subtracted our mean. Those are called our deviations. So specifically, we took L1 minus 41.5, put that in L2. So you should have things like negative 0.5 and 2.5s, 3.5s, and things like that. Yes? Okay, what do we have to do in the next column then? But to square those deviations, right? That's what the formula is telling us to do. If we look at order of operation on this, we have to find that those deviations, we have to square them, then sum them, then divide, then square root. Okay. All right. So we've got our deviations. Let's square them. So that means we're going to take X minus X bar, square it. That's actually sorted L2. So we'll square L2. So you should have things like 0.25, 2.25. I think there's even one that's like 20.25 down on that list. Yes. Okay, what do we have to do after that? Not quite yet before we divide. What do we have to do?
Times by X.
Nope. What do we have to do first? There you go. We have to sum this column. What's that called when we sum it? Sum of squares. I believe you should have 88.5. Can someone confirm? Good. Okay, now what do we do to get our variance? That would be S squared, since it's a sample. What am I gonna do?
Squares.
Nope, not square root yet. Yet, we will, but it's not yet.
By 1 minus the 9.
Very good. Don't be intimidated by this formula. Here's what we did. We took the deviations, then we squared them. We added them. This whole thing became the sum of squares. So now we need to divide by. In this case, what are we dividing by? Divide by 9, right? So we got 10 in our sample set. Can anyone tell me what you get? I think it's like repeating. Okay, so that's my variance. What's my standard deviation then? What do I do? Take the square root, right? And what do you get when you take the square root? 3 point what? 3.14? Okay. So great. That's the way we go through to calculate a standard deviation. It's good to understand that because the idea is we're trying to find an average we deviate from the mean. That's what standard deviation tells us. Now, we're going to look at the shortcuts. So if you flip your paper, you should see this at the top. I'm going to teach you how to do it with the data we currently have. And we're going to make sure we've got the right numbers. Okay? All right, so there are 2 options. I don't like option 1, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. I do like option 2. That's the one we're going to mainly use. So just a heads up. Okay, so we're always going to enter our data into L1. This is our X values that we're entering in there. Okay. All right, then we're going to go to, and I'm going to have to look at it first. We're going to go second stat and over to math. Second stat and over to math. Let's fill that in. Second stat and then go to the math menu. You see lots of fun things down there? What are some things that we might want to be able to calculate using those commands? What are all of them? What are some things we might want to use this for? The mean, which is 3, the standard deviation, the variance, right? Mean, standard deviation, variance. Okay, so there's one thing to note on this. Remember, for standard deviation, there's a sample standard deviation and a sample mean. There's a standard deviation, sample standard deviation, or a population standard deviation. There's a population variance and a sample variance, okay? They're different. They're different because one of them we divide by the population size, the other one we divide by the sample size minus 1. So what you need to understand is whatever you do and put into here, it's always going to assume it's a sample. So you're going to be getting the sample calculation, which is fine. But if it asks you for a population, this doesn't work. All right, so I'm just going to look at the standard deviation on this one. So when I pick standard deviation, so on the standard deviation on mine is number 7. It's probably number 7 on most of yours. It expects an argument. That's why it opens up a parentheses. What argument it expects is the X values. Where are my X values stored? L1. Those are the X values. So we're going to put L1 into there and hit enter. .14 standard deviation. Didn't have to go through all those calculations. I did have to enter my data in. Okay. Okay. So now let me show you another way so I don't have to do multiple commands. So say I wanted the mean, the standard deviation, and the variance all at once, and I don't have to do this 3 times. We're going to do this method. Okay. Now, depending on what operating system you're running on your TI calculators, you may or may not have to do the second step. So just do it. It doesn't hurt anything. Okay. We got our data entered into L1. Those are our X values. Okay. And then we need to enter ones for our frequency into L2. Okay, enter the same number. Now, if we have a normal frequency distribution, we're going to enter the actual frequencies. So because my data is all the data and every number appears once, that's why I'm putting a bunch of ones in. Okay, so I'm going to go to that L2. So whatever you have in L2, just override it and put ones in. So stat edit. I didn't put anything in mine, so you accidentally put too many, you can hit delete on an entry and it will delete the entry. That's how you get an entry gone. So notice I have the exact same number of ones as I have data values in there. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to go to stat, calculate, and I want to pick that very first one that says one variable stats. So first of all, before you do it, write it down. We're going to go to stat, calculate, number one, which is one variable stats. Okay. Okay, if you have an older calculator, yours may look a little different than mine. If you're borrowing one of mine, it looks like this. If you have an older one, just let me know. Anyone in here not have that prompt? Everybody has the prompt on their calculators? Sam, I know you like to use your older one. Do you have the prompts as well? Okay. If you don't have the prompts, you just have to know what to enter. But here's what's going on. It wants to know where your data is. Well, my data is in L1. It wants to know the frequency list. Okay. Well, I just put my frequency list in L2. Sometimes your calculator, depending on your OS, will let you skip this step and leave it blank and just go to calculate and it'll be fine. Just on the safe side, if it doesn't work, put your frequency list in there. My frequency list is in L2. That was a bunch of ones. And then I'm going to go to calculate. And notice there is a down arrow. That means there's more data. Let's break down what we're looking at. One variable stats. What's this that just gave me? That's the mean, X bar. It doesn't matter if it's X bar or mu because it's calculated the same way. So it's just going to call it X bar, but it's the mean. This number look familiar? 415? That was the sum of the X's. If you have a frequency in there, it will actually sum with the frequency and everything. I'll give it to you. Skip the next one, but look at SX and sigma X. What are those? Those are the two. It's the D, SD, standard deviations. Those are both the standard deviations. Here's the thing. The calculator doesn't know if you put in population data or sample data, so it's giving you both. And the difference between these is just whether I divided by n or divided by n minus 1. That's the only difference. But S is for a sample, sigma is if it's a population. You notice 3.14 is our standard deviation. What's n? Number, well, and not in this case, it's just the number of data entries. Okay, it's just the number of data entries. If we were doing our stuff from the last chapter, yes, it would be the number of trials. In this case, just talking about how many data entries are in there. Keep scrolling down. What are the last 5 numbers on there? There's a name for them. Last 5 numbers. I'm kind of giving you a hint. It's the 5-number summary for a box and whisker plot. 5-number summary. We've got our minimum, Q1, median, which is the same as Q2. Q3 is, and we have the maximum. And it finds all of that with one command. Okay. All right. So arguments that it expects in here, just so you know, are L1, which is your data, your X values. And L2, which is your frequency. Okay, that's what it's prompting me for. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's try this now with a set of data that actually is a frequency distribution, not just a plain distribution, right? No frequency. This is actually a frequency. This should look familiar. We've done this before. It's a random sample of the number of children per household in a region. There are 50 of them on here. Okay. We're gonna use our calculator to find all of our information. So the mean, the standard, the variance, the standard deviation, and the 5-number summary. Okay? So I've taken all this data, I've already put it in the frequency. There's only 7 outputs, 0 through 6. Here's how frequently they occur. Those are the things that need to go into L1 and L2, and then we're gonna run a 1 variable stats. Okay? So let's go ahead and do that. By the way, if you guys are not familiar with how to manipulate lists, listen up really quick. If you go up and highlight where it says L1 or L2, you can hit clear and then enter, and it will clear your entire list. Let me say that again. Go up and highlight, hit clear, and then enter, and the whole list goes away. If you go up there and you hit delete, it's going to delete the entire column. I can get it back for you. So don't worry if you accidentally do that. You can delete entries and clear columns. That's the rule. Delete entries and clear columns. Okay, so I can clear all this out and then we're gonna put that data in. All right, so I'm gonna load up with our X data, which is the number of kids that are in a household, which is 0 to 6. And then in the second column, I'm going to put those frequencies in there. So 10, 19, 7, 7, 2, 1, 4. Quit out of there. Now we run my 1 variable stats. So stat, calculate, 1 variable stats. L1, L2 are in there. Calculate it. I've got my mean. There's on average 1.82 kids per household. I've got my sample standard deviation, 1.72. If this was a population, it would be 1.71. Okay. Notice N says 50. Did I put 50 items into my chart? No, but it took into consideration the frequency as well as the data values. That's what it's summing there. If I keep going down, I get the 5-number summary. Now, the whole reason for the 5-number summary is able to do the box and whisker plot. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Now, why do we need to do that? Because here's the other thing the box and whisker plot will do for you. It will find your outliers. Does anybody remember how to find outliers? Got an exam coming up.
99.768.
That's the empirical rule with a standard normal distribution. Do you remember it? Got it. Interquartile ratio, interquartile range. What do we do with it? Close. You have to find the IQR, the interquartile range between Q1 and Q3, multiply it by 1.5, and then add it to Q3 and subtract it from Q1. Anything that's beyond that, those are my outliers. Nice thing, this will find it for you. So let's flip the page so you can look at the notes, and then I'm going to show you this as an example. So these calculators will graph normal things like lines, parabolas, and everything else when we go into y equals. We want to graph statistics. So we're going to do stat plots. The way we get to that is we're going to go to second y equals. So instead of going to y equals where we normally write an equation in, we're going to go to second y equals. When you go there, this screen pops up. Now, if your calculator hasn't been used today, has been cleared, all of these should say off. You should have the numbers 1, 2, 3, because we can do up to 3 statistics plots at one time. If any of these stay on, that's fine. You can turn them all off. There's also a command to turn them all on. All right, so we're going to go in and we're going to pick number 1. When you go in and you hit enter, this screen pops up. Okay, we need to turn it on. So we're just going to pick number 1 for plot 1. If I want to pick plot 2, that's fine. We're just going to do a plot 1. All right, so on our calculators, we're going to second y equals, hit enter. First thing I need to do, click on that on. Okay, so make sure you're on that and hit enter. So you turn the plot on. Okay. All right. Down on the screen, when it says type, these are all the different types of statistics plots it'll do. We're interested in 2 specific ones. These are the box and whisker plots. This is the histogram. Those are the 2 things I want to go over. Now, why I'm pointing out the two different box and whisker plots, because you notice one has dots and one does not. The one that has dots is the one that's intended to show you outliers. So that's the one I'm always gonna recommend you pick. Because if there are outliers, it'll find them for you, okay? So let's go ahead and do the box and whisker plot first. So we're gonna choose this. We're gonna scroll down and highlight that. By the way, as soon as you change your type, the windows change slightly. So by slightly, this, when it starts out, it says X list, Y list, and it's gonna go to X list and change to frequency. If we pick the one with the dots, you'll still have this mark, but if you pick the one without the dots, it will no longer say mark down here. The mark is just says, what kind of mark do you want me to use for dots? That's all it's talking about, okay? If you pick the second box and whisker plot, there's no dots. That's why it doesn't offer it as an option. We want to pick the first. So I'm going to go ahead and show that. I'm going to go down, I'm going to scroll over, hit enter. Notice everything changed. I still have my mark, but frequency changed. Now, two things it wants you to input. That'd be the X list and the frequency. So down here, I write it down. X list means you put the list in that contains your data values. Ours are in L1. If we had typed them in a different list, we would just change it to that list. Frequency, you need to set to the list that has your frequencies. If all your frequencies are 1, like it was in the previous example, I can just enter the number 1. But I have different frequencies, right? We have it's like, what's the frequency that I wrote here? All these different frequencies, 10, 19, 77, 214, and those are stored in L2. So I want to make that one L2. So on my calculator, I've got L1 already there. I'm going to put L2 in here, and I'm good. Okay. So now I want to graph this. To graph it. Okay. Scroll up here. To graph, which is where we are right here. To graph, and this is the same no matter what kind of graph you're doing. To graph, we're going to go to zoom and then zoom stat, because I don't want to have to figure out what window I need. This will automatically do it for me. Okay, I can adjust it afterwards, but this is a great command. All right, so over on my calculator, I'm going to go to zoom, and if you scroll down, it's usually number 9. Right there, you see zoom stat? So we're going to go to the statistics window. There's my box and whisker plots. Now, there are no dots here. That's because I have no outliers on this. I'm also, looks like I'm missing my middle line. Do you notice that in the box and whisker plot? There's a reason. Go ahead and look at what it says right here. I want you to hit the trace button and look what information pops up on your screen at the bottom. Trace is up here. It's one of these menus up here. Do you notice it says minimum is 0? So it's telling you your minimum number. That's your first number of your 5-number summary. When you scroll to the right, it's telling you Q1 is 1. You scroll to the right again, it just happens that the median is 1. So it's there, just the same value. Q3 is 3 and max is 6. So you get your 5-number summary right there. Okay. All right. Let's do a histogram really quick. So the only difference is we're going to go back into this as well. This time we're going back into this. We're just going to pick the histogram this time. It's still going to ask us for the same set of stuff. So go to second y equals. That gets us into our stat plot. Okay. And I'm just going to choose a different graph this time, the histogram. Now, notice mark at the bottom went away because there's not going to be any dots here. So it doesn't need that. My X data is still in L1. My frequency is still in L2. I'm still going to do zoom. Zoom 9. And it gives me a histogram. Now, it will default to however many bins it wants, which is not always what I want. Okay, think about it really quick. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They put in 8 classes. I have either 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 or 6 kids, right? 7 classes would be more nice to see. So I'm going to show you how to set that. Okay. So this is the note on, this is the note on the outliers. This is the note on the histogram. So we're going to go into window. which is usually where we set, -10 to 10, -10 to 10, right? But this time we want to set X min to the smallest value, basically the start of our first class. We want to set X max to the end of our last class. I know my classes are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm going to go to 7 just to make sure I have everything because I have to make room for the bins. So I'm going to do this at 0 to 7. Then X scale, that's where you want to set your class width. I want it to just be 1 because the difference between 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is 1. So I'll show you that, and then we're going to hit graph. Don't hit zoom 9, just hit graph this time. So go to window, 0 is fine. I'm going to set this up to 7. It has its class bin width at 0.857. That's so weird. I'm going to set it to 1. Now just hit graph. The number of bins have changed, or the number of classes have changed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now hit your trace button again and look at what happens. When you hit the trace button, it automatically goes to the top of the first class and it gives you a bunch of information. It tells you this has all the values where X is between 0 and up to anything less than 1. And there happen to be 10 things in there. That's your frequency for that class. In fact, we should see 10, 19, 7721, something like that, 4. If you keep scrolling to the right, again, the next one goes 1 and anything less than 2, 2, anything less than 3, 3, anything less than 4, etc. Cool. All right. So now I just want to try a couple problems like you're going to see on your homework. Okay. So you still have to do a little bit of work outside the calculator, but the calculator is going to make things so much easier now. So the gas mileages in miles per hour for 27 cars are shown in the frequency distribution. This is a frequency distribution. Okay. Approximate the mean standard deviation of the frequency distribution. So I don't have X values to put in. What do I need to use for X values? You guys remember?
Midpoint.
The midpoint, absolutely. So I need to find the midpoint. So my X values are going to be midpoint numbers, and we're going to put those in L1. We'll put our frequency in L2. Now, before you go calculating anything, let me show you another shortcut. Let's go back into our list. So I'm going to stat edit. Let me clear out what I've got. So I'm going to go up and highlight 2, clear, go up, highlight list 1, clear. Here's what's nice. I can type the calculation to find the midpoint right in. Remember how I find the midpoint of any two numbers? Add them, divide by 2, right? So we're going to take each of these. I'll move my calculator over. Just make sure you use parentheses. I'm going to take 25 plus 28 and divide it by 2. If you can do it in your head, great. 25 plus 28, put that in parentheses, then divide by 2. It'll calculate the value. I can do it again, parentheses, 29 plus 32, close parentheses, divided by 2. If you know the pattern, you can just type the numbers in directly. I've taught you how to do that. And those should be your 4. Okay, go ahead and type your frequencies in, 8, 9, 3, and 7. And then we're going to run one variable stats. So quit out of this, stat, calculate, one variable stats. We got our L1, L2. So the average MPG is 31.8 miles per gallon with a standard deviation. This is a sample of 4.7 miles to gallon. There are 27 in total that I did, right? We add all our frequencies together. That's what that is. If I keep scrolling down, I get my 5-number summary. My minimum is 26.5, maximum is 38.5, Q1, Q3, and median. Okay. All right. We okay with that? The next example is the big one. It has everything. Lots of practice here. All right. So this is just a data set, and we're going to do a lot of things. First thing we're going to do is we're going to find the mean, the standard deviation, and the 5-number summary. A and B can all be done with one command, and that's one variable stats, but we gotta get this into L1. So let's get typing. If you go in, I'll read these off if that helps you when I get there. So I'm clearing out what I've got, clear my lists, and then I'll start over. All right, getting ready to read them off. Here we go. 65, 65, 64, 56, 58, 62, 63, 63, 54, 58, 60, 60, 59, 64, and 76. You should have a total of 15 data points in there. I'm going to go ahead and throw my ones in for my frequency. Sometimes you have to have it depending on your OS, the operating system version that you're running. The one that I had to have it in there to work. All right, stat, calc, one variable stats, L1, L2 are in there. Calculate. I'll finish.
Yes.
You have to use a piece of paper? You didn't use any paper? Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, so I've got my mean. I've got my standard deviation, depending on whether it's a population or it's a sample. And I have my 5-number summary. So X bar 61.8, S, X. We can get all those. I'm not gonna write them down, but you get it, right? QX, and then I have my 5-number summary. That would be min, Q1, median, Q3, and max. Okay, any questions on that? Again, I can't have my calculator up here and copy them down, but they're all there. Okay, check your numbers twice, calculate once. That's the biggest issue when people make mistakes here, is they put their numbers in wrong. Okay, anybody have questions on that? That was one variable stats. Because now, this is A, this is B. For C, it wants me to identify outliers. How did I say you could do that quickly? Without having to go through calculations. What am I gonna pick? That's the big question. You know how to find it. Hint, I gotta grab something to find it. The box and whisker plot with outliers. Okay, so here I go. I'm gonna go into stat plot. So second y equals. It's on. I'm gonna make sure I pick the box and whisker plot that has outliers, because if I have any, it will calculate them for me. Defaults to L1 and L2, that's great. Leave your mark as that one. The other two are harder to see. Okay, so if I have any, it's gonna identify them. So now I'm gonna do zoom 9 to get that, and boom, I do have an outlier. See it? I want to know which one it actually is without having to go back and look at my data. Hit trace. Gives you the minimum, Q1, median, Q4. It will give you the next X value that's not the outlier. And one more will give you the outlier, which is the 76. If there are more than one, it would show you all of them. You could scroll through them. Okay? So instead of having to revise the big formula to find it, you can do it this way. All right. So that was the box and whisker plot. So 76 was my outlier. All right, let's create a histogram with 5 classes. Okay, histogram with 5 classes. So I just have to go change my histogram, but I need 5 classes, which means I need to calculate the class width. I can put what the class width is and let the calculator do the rest, but I have to calculate it. Okay, do you remember how we do that? We have to take our maximum value minus our minimum value, divide by how many we have. In this case, I don't remember what our max and min were. Max was 76. What's our minimum? Was it 54?
Yeah.
Okay, so 76 minus 54, we're dividing that by 50, oh, sorry, not dividing by n, we're dividing it by the number of classes. Sorry. 5. Number of classes. And then we round to the nearest whole number, remember that? So I think we get 5.4, which 4.4. I can talk today. So we're gonna round that to 5. That's gonna be my class width. Okay? And my minimum is 54. All right, so now we can go do this on our calculators. So over on our calculators, we're gonna switch this by going into second y equals. So we're gonna switch it over to a histogram. Okay, I'm gonna do a zoom 9 initially, let it do its own thing. Then I'm gonna go into my window and set it how I want it. X min should be your smallest value. That's the start of your first class, 54. X max, set it to something that's going to be above your last class. I'm going to set it to 85 just to be safe. And X scale is your class width. Notice it sets it to exactly 4.4. I want it to set to 5. Okay. Now just hit graph. Now, how could I build a frequency distribution from this? Hit your trace and take a look at what you got. So this says I start at 54 and I go up to everything less than 59. Well, we've got whole numbers here, which means I'm going to go from 54 to 58. It has a frequency of 4. Okay, I should say not X, but class. But your next one. Okay, and notice I didn't have to count out anything. The next one, so it starts at 59, goes up to less than 64. So 59 up to 63. And what was the frequency? 6. And I can keep going on. Cool, right? Okay. There's a homework assignment out there for you. It's due tomorrow by midnight, should be fairly quick. The worksheet I want to give you, that is for tomorrow. We'll do that in class, not due until Monday, but tomorrow for the most part, it's just a day. Partner if you want tomorrow, otherwise on your own. You have everything you need to do this. Grab one on your way out. Sorry. Sorry.
Yes. It's gonna take 4 minutes. Really, I'd rather make requirements and simple than easy, but long.
That.
And I don't even know that, I think that, I think that.
That's how parts of that. So there's if you look over it, that's all you have to do is type L1 and then comma L2 and you'll get the exact same number.
So just that, one comment.
So that's why I asked if anyone's did prompt it.
I thought it showed up at first and then I was like, okay, that's not getting this again.
That's that'll work. And actually, if you want me to update your operating system, I probably can. I just need to borrow the board. I think yours is over, new enough that I can do that.
Okay.
So it should prompt you.
Okay.
Yeah, and had their book, put the board, if I would get to one that's already updated, because I had to update a couple of times. Because they were old.
Yeah.
And once I had them updated, they worked fine. You know, you can't be here for another hour. Right, because I had my meeting with the choir, so it was at 1:50. Okay, you have a good question I could answer? Over for tonight, or?
It's about the, scroll goes to mine. It's over
Okay.
the same two questions.
Okay. It's the same two questions. Let's look those up really quick. What did you have a question on?
I was gonna, talk about
Yes.
with the relook. That, that,
You take it tomorrow after school?
I didn't get it to me.
You need to reopened? Yes, let me do.
Great, Thursday.
Yeah, I noticed you got it done. You had enough to get full on it. I thought I had opened it back up for everybody. Did you look and see?
Yeah, it was.
It was, okay. So I'm going to the same place for both of you, so.
Okay, it's guaranteed, it's gonna get that. That's good. Yeah. Okay, okay.
You want the review, right? No, I have it set. I have it set to close on the 11th. I reopened it. That's what I thought. I had reopened it for how much it is. If you go look before I do anything, if it's not, then I need to do something else. I've got gone to the wrong thing. All right. Should have been open as a Monday. And however. .3 homework.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah,
It should open to be open to the 11th.
yeah, it's open.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
I gotta go look at this.
Okay. No wonder. All right, so is this last problem here?
Yeah, and I know for a fact that's wrong, it's looking through it all, but it basically, it says, too many. It says it can handle up to 19, so too many was in 19.
What, I need to go over the. Or.
It is.
Just forget. You took it as, the work facility. Many little takers were, right? It's 24 more. So what are you doing to find this number?
Well, for too many, I basically found 19, everything lower than that, and then it'd be one minus. And I got like a negative number. This is what I got all the way here. 1, 0, 3, 19, and that was 9, and then the sum, like, 1.
Okay, 1 second. let me look at Solutions. So let's see. Well, it's not even. And your sums aren't gonna. Your sums should never be more than one, because then you don't have a valid probability distribution. Why did they jump so much from 18 to 19? There shouldn't be a reason why it jumped from 18 to 19 that much. I don't know offhand, I've got it to my meeting. I have my note to send you, I haven't had a chance to look at it, kind of prep it. So, if I send you something by, 3 or 4, will you have enough time to get it done by tonight?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so 3 to 4, expect a message from me through Schoology. I'll look at that one in particular and see if I can give you some guidance on that. So, okay, I can't right now, but I have.
I figured that was on the right track, but like some things like that, yeah.
Yeah, and then I'm assuming you're having the same issue on the next one as well.
So the next one is that almost the same thing, but we have to do all those numbers. Like, we have to calculate all of
But
that.
there's not, it's not all of those. That's what I was trying to tell you on that. One,
I tried to
So-
find, but I didn't know.
here, so 72 strokes, 18 holes means how much are they averaging? How many strokes are they averaging per hole? No, 72 strokes for the entire game of 18 holes. No. So 72 strokes for the entire game, and there are 18 holes. How do you find the strokes per hole?
72 records.
So that means there's 4 strokes per hole. So what number 4 is actually asking you is find the probability that you'll have more than 4 strokes per hole, which means you want to take 1 minus the probability that you'll have less than or equal to 4. So if you find the probability of 1, 2, 3, and 4, no 0, because you have to have at least 1 stroke. Subtract those from what's
So
add this together.
I'll just put the 0 in there.
So find that out, and then, because I know that one off the top of my head, because I've had several people ask about that one, I'll go look at the other one, and I'll give you, I'll send you a sheet message.
Right.
It's on my to-do, so
Awesome. Is there on the second last one, is there a 0 on that one or no 0?
On that one, I think there can be, because it's talking about the number of tankers, right?
Yeah. That could show up.
That can show up. In golf, you're never gonna have 0. But in this, you should have 0, I would think, because final indicated probabilities, the number of oil tankers per city are 15 a day. You could have 0 tankers there, so I believe it includes, hold on, I can tell you right now. Yes, it does include 0.
Got it. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.